Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. The NFL Scouting Combine is officially underway, and I know some people value the Combine more than others, but we did get a very candid interview from former Patriots Director of Personnel and now basically the de facto General Manager, at least through the NFL Draft, Eliot Wolf this morning, and he said a lot of really interesting things about the way the coaching staff is going, the new culture in New England, the way they're evaluating players heading towards the draft, some news on interviews for the quarterback position, and he even threw a few, not so subtle shots at Bill Belichick and a little more subtle shot at Mac Jones. So a lot kind of came out of this, even though it was sort of a short interview. And what came out right out of the bat was Eliot Wolf talking about the way the Patriots have changed the way they are evaluating players heading toward the draft. The Patriots had a very role-based, nuanced form of grading players, and now it looks like they're going to embrace the old Green Bay Packers system, which Eliot Wolf even emphasized in his interview, which is more value-based, ranking players 1 through 700 or whatever the number is, so that they can understand who is the best player available on the draft board and go with that going forward. And this is a little bit interesting because the Patriots would always say, or Bill Belichick would always say, we're not going to draft based on need. We're going to take the best player available. And then we see him drafting players based on need in places where they really could have taken him a lot later, like Cole Strange, for instance, who many projected to be a third-round draft choice and instead went in the middle of the first round. That was a little bit odd. It looks like the Patriots are going back to what they previously preached, which is taking the best player available, regardless of need or fit. I mean, let's be honest, they're going to draft based on need. That's what teams do. They're not going to draft a lot of guards because they have plenty of guards. They're going to draft tackles instead. So it's always a balance between those two things, but that system is changing. Wolf also preached collaboration. This is nothing new. I think we're all kind of sick of hearing about it. Gerard Mayo certainly did it in his first and second press conference, that this is a collaborative effort between the coaching staff, owner Robert Kraft, with the players. Everyone's going to have input, and they're going to continue to preach that as they've done all offseason. But I think Wolf, when he kind of took a shot at Bill Belichick, said the culture is really shifting in the building. He said, quote, there's more of an open, less of a hard ass type of vibe in the building. So who is the hard ass that was previously in the building? I think we all know who that was, and that was Bill Belichick. And, with Bill O'Brien no longer there, he had a reputation of being that kind of guy. So it's going to be much more of a friendly environment. Now, how honest is that? We'll see. That is something you would say when you're trying to attract free agents to the team, which the Patriots, even though they have a lot of cap space, certainly going to have a challenge doing, considering they won 4 games last year and have a new head coach that, we all like in New England, but nobody outside of New England really knows anything about Gerard Mayo. He's been with the Patriots organization his entire career as a player and a coach. So, maybe he's just saying that, but I think regardless, since you are filling the Belichick void, it will be a friendlier environment, and that is the way the league is going and what teams are emphasizing. And certainly you can look at it with players like coaches like Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel not being hired, instead opting for some of these younger, less experienced, and more friendly coaches. So that remains to be seen how that's going to play out. But, I have my skepticisms about it because at the end of the day, when you're preaching collaboration, you need somebody whom the buck is going to stop. And Eliot Wolf did mention that, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But, when the going gets tough, what ends up happening? Do you continue to be that friendly, approachable head coach, or do you change your philosophy? We'll see how that goes, because I'll tell you right now, the Patriots are not going 17-0 this next season. There will be adversity regardless of who is at quarterback, regardless of who they draft, regardless of who they bring in free agency. Now, on ownership's input in terms of football operations, Eliot Wolf said it's ultimately up to myself and Gerard Mayo and not Robert Kraft. So Kraft really is continuing to be hands-off. I think he's basically said that he feels guys like Matt Groh, Eliot Wolf, much of the coaching staff were kind of marginalized in terms of their input into player personnel and coaching decisions with Bill Belichick around. And he's really allowing them to take ownership of the organization. And, I don't expect Robert Kraft to really be stepping in on who is the next quarterback unless, he has to step in the same way he did when the Patriots ultimately decided to opt for Tom Brady and trade Jimmy Garoppolo away to the 49ers, which Kraft basically pushed Bill Belichick to do. Probably the right decision considering we won 2 more Super Bowls after that, or 1 more Super Bowl. But that's what it is. Kraft is hands off, and it's in the hands of Eliot Wolf and Gerard Mayo, who are ultimately going to be the deciders there. Wolf continued that he says the offense needs to be weaponized, get faster, and the team needs to get more explosive on defense. Also emphasized that the Pats really want to re-sign Michael Onwenu and Kyle Duggar, and I've said this in previous podcasts. I think bringing back Michael Onwenu, who's probably going to be a little bit more expensive now because there will be high demand because he is a dual right guard, right tackle, because he showed a lot of success playing the tackle position when he was moved there in the latter half of the season, probably too late when the Patriots were basically already out of contention. I think Onwenu has to be the first priority. Bringing him back, even if it's going to cost you $18 million, maybe you can get him for $15 a year, but sign him to a 4 to 5 year extension. If it's 18 to 20 million, do it. Then at least you don't have to worry about that side of the offensive line, and you can address the left side either through the draft or by signing a free agent. Tyron Smith's a guy I really like, but is New England going to be attracted to him? Probably not. He's probably going to stay in Dallas if I had to guess. And then here's the somewhat subtle shot Eliot Wolf took at Mac Jones when he said he was talking about the importance of body language from the quarterback. He said, quote, body language on the field is very important at that position. You don't want a guy that's throwing his hands up after a bad play, or you can see him physically pointing at somebody. Everybody is looking at the quarterback. Well, who did all those things? Mac Jones, obviously, particularly when he was being coached by Matt Patricia. He certainly wore his frustration on his sleeve. Now, I will also note Tom Brady did that too, but they're 2 different quarterbacks. Tom Brady really embraced the adversity. It often got the best out of him. He was really hard on his teammates, not really in the locker room so much, but certainly in the game and at practice when things get really competitive, when really the opposite happened with Mac Jones, who just kind of folded inward and really got in his head. So a bit of a shot there at Mac Jones. We do know that Alex Van Pelt in his introductory press conference said everything is on the table. He's already spoken with Mac Jones. As of this moment in time, Mac Jones is still on the roster. I think he would make an excellent backup, a good mentor for a young QB because he is a good training camp quarterback. He's going to go through the progression, make the correct reads, make the right throws, even if it takes 90 minutes to get to its target. I think having him in that locker room, if he's not too much of a so-called cancer in the clubhouse, as people say, I think it is worth keeping him around. That said, a lot of rumors are saying this is the week where we will hear discussions about potentially trading Mac Jones, as well as discussions about the Chicago Bears potentially trading Justin Fields, who the more I think about it, I don't really want the Patriots to go after, even if it does take care of the quarterback position. You either want to take one of those guys early or in the second round or address it through free agency with a bridge quarterback, or if you're lucky, paying a guy like Kirk Cousins. But this is obviously a bit of a shot at Mac Jones, and he wants a quarterback that they're going to evaluate that will be able to handle that type of adversity. And speaking of that, Eliot Wolf said the Patriots do plan on meeting with 3 major quarterbacks while they are in Indianapolis. Those quarterbacks are Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. And I know the question is, why are they meeting with Caleb Williams, right? He's probably going to go number 1 overall to the Chicago Bears. It's probably not even worth considering him at this point. He is perceived to be the best quarterback to come out of the draft in quite some time. But hey, I will say this. I'm not sure Drake May is going to be moving up the draft boards. I think if anyone's going to fall, it's going to be him. The guy that does seem to be moving up, however, particularly with his performance winning the Heisman Trophy his final season at LSU, looking at the trajectory of his college career, how he has improved quite a bit year to year, and many expect that that will continue as he moves into the NFL. I wouldn't be shocked if a team like the Chicago Bears took a real consideration at drafting Jayden Daniels at number 1 overall. So what does that mean? That would mean Caleb Williams falls to number 2, or maybe even falls to number 3, because here's the thing. There are a lot of red flags with Caleb Williams that does not exist with Drake May and Jayden Daniels, right? Caleb Williams obviously has a reputation as a bit of a diva, although the people who have been around him say he is not. So I think that might be overplayed. But we see him in all the commercials. We see his penthouse apartment that people post on Instagram. We see the high profile he's developed because of this new college football system where players are getting paid and compensated. He's a multimillionaire already before he enters the NFL. And that is a big red flag. Even if Drake May and Jayden Daniels are as well, it's certainly underplayed relative to Caleb. And look, here's the thing. Another issue, and this is not as much of an issue with guys like Patrick Mahomes, who seems to handle it right, but it's his dad. I mean, Caleb Williams' dad has said things like he wants ownership stake in the next team he's playing for. That's a bold statement for a rookie quarterback. Probably not going to happen, right? And look, Caleb Williams is also a little bit undersized, even if he is very athletic, even if he is durable and thick and can take hits. Certainly has a great arm, can extend plays, be mobile in the pocket, go through the progression, do all those things you want a quarterback to do. Has that kind of Patrick Mahomes prototype that we really haven't seen since a guy like Mahomes entered the draft. But these interviews are going to really say a lot about these quarterbacks. And look, I know the Patriots are meeting with Caleb Williams. Maybe they are really impressed by the guy, and the Bears are not based on their interviews. And they say, hey, look, we're willing to trade up for that number 1 pick. It may take us a first rounder or 2 in the future, or a first rounder in the future and a second or third rounder, but we really like Caleb Williams. All options are on the table at this point. So these interviews are going to be vital to see who the Patriots are going to draft. And they're also going to get a lot of information from guys like Drake May and Jayden Daniels. I've spoken about Jayden Daniels, who seems to just be improving by leaps and bounds, and that's why I think he could move up the draft board, potentially to number 1 overall. But don't write off Drake May either. I made a podcast last week how I think all this negativity surrounding Drake May, the comparisons to Mitch Trubisky, just seems like a total psyop to me, when really I think he is sort of the undervalued guy heading into the draft. He's much larger than Mitch Trubisky, has a much bigger arm, can be mobile, take hits, hurdle guys in the same way that Josh Allen does, make throws in the same way that Justin Herbert does. If he falls to New England, do not be disappointed. And I think these interviews are going to be very important, particularly with a guy like Drake May, who's kind of fallen off the table a little bit just because North Carolina football has not really been relevant since, I don't know, early November. So we'll see what happens there. Let me know what you think, though. Are these interviews actually going to mean something? Do you think the Patriots interviewing Caleb Williams is some smoke that they might potentially move up, or he could potentially move back depending on what the Bears think of him? Will be interesting to see how that plays out. And last but not least, Eliot Wolf says he will have the final say on draft picks. So it's not Gerard Mayo, it's not Matt Groh, it's not collaboration with everyone. It is going to be Eliot Wolf, who the buck stops with on draft day. And it's good to know that he's building a record now. So depending on how the 2024 NFL draft goes, which is the most important draft in the Patriots organization since they picked up Drew Bledsoe, we're going to be able to hold Eliot Wolf accountable, whether he succeeds or fails doing that. And that is important to know. And it's good that he is taking accountability in these press conferences. And we know he's going to take the Green Bay Packers approach, which leads me to think they won't be trading back the number 3 pick. They won't be drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. They will be taking, in all likelihood, Drake May or Jayden Daniels, whoever falls to number 3 or the best available if they both fall. We know Green Bay never has prioritized wide receivers in the first round. I don't think they've ever, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they've ever drafted a receiver in the first round. So in all likelihood, as much as I like Marvin Harrison Jr., And the argument I made in the podcast yesterday of taking Marvin Harrison Jr. and then maybe trading back into the first round, or if he falls to the second round, drafting a guy like J.J. McCarthy who sits for a year and develops, I don't think that's likely. I think it's going to come down to these three quarterbacks, probably just two, May and Daniels. And that's why Eliot Wolf really emphasized that in this interview today. Interesting times in Foxborough. We'll be here at Pat's Cast the rest of the week to cover what comes out of the NFL Scouting Combine, who has large hands, who has skinny arms, who can run a 40-yard dash with no defender in front of them. I know a lot of this is useless metrics, but it will be interesting. I am interested to see who is the fastest wide receiver, because that could be Marvin Harrison. I don't think he's participating, though. Could be Malik Neighbors. I think he's the favorite. Roma Dunze, also a very fast guy. And there's some guys who probably drop to the second, third, or fourth round who their biggest strength is speed. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. We'll be here to cover it the rest of the way. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts as well. And we'll see you soon.